She's undoubtedly the most famous opera singer in the world. Chased by journalists from around the world, every one of her recitals at La Scala in Milan or at the Metropolitan in New York have unleashed passions. People watch her every move. She is spied on. Her love affairs are tracked down. Of course, I'm talking about Bianca Castafiore. She's without a doubt the most famous opera singer of all time. In comic books. We might never have been able to hear her voice, but we're all familiar with her figure, her accent, and her persona. And possibly most of all, with her unconditional love for jewelry and her uncontrollable fear of having them stolen. Hergé created this character in the 1930s, and he kept drawing her until his last books. He had several sources of inspiration for her creation, but one of them particularly stands out. Will you be able to guess which one as you listen to this story? You're listening to Voice of Jewels, a podcast from L'École, School of Jewelry Arts, supported by Cleef Arpels, unveiling the stories and secrets behind history's most fascinating jewels. Paris, in the early 1960s. Maria is back home, exhausted. She has just wrapped up a tour across Europe. Today is her 40th birthday. She hasn't read any letters, hasn't answered any phone calls, and has turned down all invitations. She's just not in the mood. On her coffee table, a colorful comic book catches her attention. She picks up the book. The Castafiore Emerald. On the book's cover, she discovers a woman in a red dress. The character is standing in the center of a reception room, singing at the top of her lungs. Large pearl earrings hang from her ears. On her décolletage sits an imposing brooch adorned with a massive gem of a bluish-green color. Maria sits down on the sofa. She's spinning the exceptional 37-carat ring from her ex-husband around her ring finger.
So there is a very long and interesting relationship between jewelry and opera singers, actresses, musicians.
Léonard Pouy, professor of art history and content and transmission manager at L'École, School of Jewelry Arts.
That can be started in 18th century when there was already a type of fascination for such artists, and those artists would receive many gifts from their admirers. There was, of course, a competition between the admirers to win the attention of the singer through gifts of jewelry. But there was also a competition among singers, actresses, and artists related to who will own the most beautiful, the most jewelry. And this will be the case all along the 19th century and already in the beginning of the 20th century. The main difference is that when you look at the opera singers or the actresses, is that very often they will wear their own jewelry in movies or on stage, whereas today the tradition is for a jewelry maison to lend pieces to actresses for red carpets, for galas or special events.
Maria is no comic book expert. She doesn't know much about Tintin's adventures either. But Maria has heard from various sources that Bianca Castafiore, whose portrait just got released in bookstores, bears an uncanny resemblance with her. And talking about it makes people smile, as if they were being funny. But as she looks at the woman on the cover, Maria doesn't see the slightest likeness with her. For starters, Bianca Castafiore is a blonde, whereas she is a brunette, and their profiles are nothing alike. But this comic book sitting on the table, it's beckoning. Maria's curiosity has been piqued. She sees this as an opportunity to take her mind elsewhere and to forget about this dreadful birthday. Page 1. Springtime. Birds are singing. Nature is looking magnificent. Tintin and Captain Haddock are taking a stroll under the trees in a forest. They're enjoying the outdoors. When Maria resumes her reading, she finds out Captain Haddock broke his leg, and his foot is in a cast. Bianca Castafiore, her comical doppelganger, comes in at the same time. She's sporting a fur coat. Tintin and the captain don't look too excited to see her. Irma, Bianca's lady companion, is holding a small suitcase. It is filled with jewelry. The diva's entire collection is in there. She never travels without it. Some of the pieces are priceless, such as Maharaja of Gopal's emerald, Marquis de Gorgonzola's presents, and some gifts from admirers. And as Bianca lives in fear of having them stolen, she wears fakes exclusively. Maria feels for her double row of pearls on her chest. She can't help but smile. One must recognize this is one trait she and Bianca Castafiore have in common.
Jewelry collection of the Castafiore is quite interesting because it's really hard to see them in the comic. Of course, she wears a lot of jewelry, but this jewelry is actually a couture. It's a jewelry which is created by Tristan Borg, which is, of course, a reference to Christian Dior. But in the very beginning of the Maison Dior, there was no jewelry involved in the collections. It's after the death of the designer that the Maison started to do jewelry, which was actually couture jewelry, so not made with precious materials, imitations. And it's quite interesting to see that she's losing all the pearls of her necklace on the floor, on the ground, which would be impossible for a natural pearl necklace, given that there would be a knot between each of the pearls in order to avoid such a disaster. Her collection seems to be made of gemstones, which are actually unmounted. She talked about an emerald given to her by her friend Maharaja, but we don't see actual set. We don't see what is the true nature of her jewelry collection.
Bianca thanks Tintin for his welcome by offering him a record, her own rendition of Gounod's Faust Jewel Song aria. Here's another sign, Maria thinks to herself. This aria, this piece from the soprano repertoire, is not for the faint of heart. It tells how Marguerite feels transformed as she puts on jewels from the jewelry box Mephistopheles gave her. She feels more beautiful than ever. Ah, I laugh to see myself so beautiful in this mirror. Bianca Castafiore has made it her own favorite aria. She sings it during every concert. As it turns out, Maria has performed it dozens of times. As a matter of fact, she just recorded it. All this couldn't just be coincidental.
So jewelry is supposed to be useless, and yet it exists since the very beginning of humanity. We have jewelry made hundreds of thousands of years before our era. So it has always existed, and so there must be a reason for it. And of course, the very first reason beyond its value is its beauty. It makes the person who wears it beautiful, and the diva is laughing while she sees herself in the mirror and looking so beautiful. So there is a power of seduction, of power of beauty, but this seduction can be reversed, because there is also a power of seduction when you give someone jewelry. You offer the lady you like jewelry, and you will, in a way, buy her. You will seduce her through this offering.
The phone rings across the room. The maid announces some gentleman who called to wish her a happy birthday. Maria isn't in the mindset for that. And most of all, she suspects she knows who's calling. She'd rather go back to her comic book. In Marlinspike Gardens, Bianca Castafiore is giving an interview with two journalists. They are evidently looking for a scoop. In the article that appears 2 pages later, the wedding of Bianca and Captain Haddock is announced. Some racy fake news. Maria, too, has been idolized and chased after by journalists, for better and for worse. For years, she's been hoping to be proposed to, but in vain. The concert recording has turned the castle upside down. On the next page, a sudden turn of events happens. A shriek. Then the lights go out. "Mercy! My jewels!" cries Bianca Castafiore hopelessly. The Maharaja's emerald is gone. Everyone is frantically looking for it. Bianca faints right in the middle of the room. But 2 panels later, she finds her jewelry box and the emerald under one of the sofa's cushions. Maria bursts out laughing. "Mercy, my jewels," is precisely what she had cried out to a Paris Match journalist in her dressing room when she'd thought she'd lost her treasure. Hergé had definitely done his homework.
We find many jewelry in comics, we find treasures, we find magical amulets, but most of the time, the jewel we find in comics are stolen jewel. When you think about Tintin, when you think about Blake and Mortimer with the necklace of the Queen, the stealing of a jewel is the perfect crime. You don't need to make victims, and you will obtain the maximum value in the most limited size, in a way. It's much more easy to leave a bank or a museum with a diamond in your pocket than win a painting from an old master, or with many cases with cash. The jewel is perfect for stealing, of course, perfect to sell. Also, you can recut it, you can make money out of it. And since it combines beauty, value, symbolism, fascination, it is the perfect transgression. It really is the perfect crime.
Puns, slapstick, double entendre. Maria is now laughing wholeheartedly. When she gets to the last page, the singer is in a state of elation she hasn't experienced in a long time. On each page, she admires Bianca's outfits and gets a kick out of finding signs and similarities with her own jewelry. She then opens her own treasure box. Maria puts on a piece of jewelry, then another one. Now wearing the set her lover bought her at the beginning of their relationship, she finds herself perfectly beautiful. She picks up the phone. She recognizes the voice on the other end of the line. She's feeling emotional. So is he. Maria caresses the stones as she listens to him. She hangs up, full of glee. The next day, before hopping on a plane, she swings by Place Vendôme to look for a small birthday gift. Jewels make her look so beautiful. God forbid that they ever get stolen. This might or might not be how things actually played out. This story is based on fiction. However, one thing is for sure. On November 18th, 2023, a copy of the Castafiore Emerald was auctioned off in a famous auction house. In it, there was a small original Hergé sketch and Maria Callas's autograph. One way or another, she must have held the book in her hands. Voice of Jewels, a podcast from L'École School of Jewelry Arts, supported by Cleef Arpels. Written by Martin Quenehen and Aram Kebabdjian. Performed by Edoardo Ballerini and produced by Bababam. With the participation of Léonard Pouy, Professor of Art History and Content and Transmission Manager at L'École School of Jewelry Arts.